So activating forces passively of compression, distraction, torsion, and shear in multiple positions for the vertebral column. Obviously, you're not going to see the vertebral column here. Trade-offs are constant. Once again, this is the case. So as far as traction, I have to be able to get him to go upwards. But I'm going to sacrifice all other possible activating forces for the vertebral column in doing this, right? So one that I saw some of you attempt, which was a reasonable attempt at a solution, you come underneath and you do this, right? Now, the way that it was done, you can see tons of movement in the shoulder girdle. Now, if I get nice and tight, and I'm like my knee happens to be here, as I do this, I can actually get traction. So you can make it better. Give yourself a hug. This works quite well. You okay?
Yep.
Okay. Right? And for some reason, that makes everybody's back crack. Yeah. But it's nice and slow. There's no HVLA. It does happen. But from this hold, go back again. Getting side bending, I can get it, right? I can't get compression. So I can get side bending and rotation, so kind of your torsion shear-ish. But this is hard on me. This is a lot of work, right? And I can get really good traction. That feels pretty good, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can get it, but it's a lot of work on me. Especially if you're attempting to go indirect, a hold like that is going to be very low value because I can't monitor the tissue that I would be interested in. So, as an alternate, I can get almost everything I need with something that looks like it's good for side bending, but if I come around, it's good for rotation. So, I can get some decent side bending and rotation here, right? So side bending, not great rotation, but I can get some. So what you'll find is trying to get stuff soft here will work. What the heck? There. And then I can drop on and I get a little bit of added compression. It's not fantastic. Lay on your back for a moment. So traction here. So I'm just going to come down here. Traction here, really, the closest you're going to get is that. But you see, I'm just pulling him around. Do you feel any traction in your vertebral column there?
No.
No, because basically what I'm doing is I'm rolling him over his gluteal tissue and then also his thoracic region. So it's like you almost feel like you're rubbing against the table where you're touching the table.
Yeah, it's just like
yeah, like a glide. Yeah. Now, if I pull really hard, still doesn't do much for traction, correct? So some people will say this is compression. Look, his whole chin's moving. I'm moving him. There's a question. Yes, please ask the question.
What if he held onto the table and did not allow his upper body to move?
Okay, hold on to the table and don't let your upper body to move.
Like that?
Yeah. Feels like some traction now?
In the low back.
In the low back, but it's not necessarily full vertebral traction. So that's a good solution, right? Solution from the room. This is amazing. But not what you would want, right? It's a good solution, but it's not necessarily what you would want. So for traction, seated is superior. But if I go in here and I compress, right? It feels like something on one side more than it does when I do it on both sides. Is that fair?
Yeah.
But, sort of, but everything else moves. It's like, how would I say that's the hip? That's everything. So if I want it to be in the hip, it'd be like that. You'd say that's your hip?
But then how much, you're just pushing him now.
No, I'm not pushing him now.
No, but I mean beyond the hip. Are you
Beyond.
pushing his body?
If I go beyond the hip, sorry. So because there's no audio in the room, basically it was, if I'm pushing farther, it's just everything. Yeah. So it's not good.
Okay.
It's not good for, and this is not shear or side bending of the vertebral column. That's not it. That's not it, right? Like if you look at how far somebody can side bend, that's not really in there. You feel something in your low back, but you feel it more in your hip. Is that fair?
Yeah, not much.
Right? So it looks, I can make the claim that this is going to be side bending or some form of or shear of the vertebral column. It's not, right? I can say as a hold, right? Let's just say I want to get some torsion, some shear, and some compression of the lumbar vertebral column. I could go into something like a leg rotation, and then I can say this is the rotation, and my forearm is the shear, right? So you can really tune into some stuff in the lumbar column, but I won't get anything in the thoracic region. Right? So again, trade-off, trade-off, trade-off. I'm usually missing at least one of the movements. So here's some traction. This feels like traction. Right? Now, one of the reasons it feels like traction is because I can actually have my hand on it and I can figure it out. Right? So when I'm down at the bottom, it's like, oh, it's really heavy traction or really heavy compression. You don't know. It's really hard to know because you can't feel it. And then, yeah, to attempt to traction with the arms, you're just going to pull on the scapula. It's not going to work. Lay facing that way, my friend. There you go. So something I'll make very obvious, using this for side bending. Look, kind of everything moves. I can feel movement in the region of the vertebral column with the palpatory hand, but I'm just feeling movement off of the scapula, right? So it's just squishing tissue. Rotation will work quite well. So if I get to somewhere where I connect to what I'm looking for, and then I add it in, but you're not seeing the backhand. So look, I can rotate to where I want it to go. The hand on, I can compress down here and something happens, but then what's going to happen is some of this. So I get multiple parameters in your cardinal planes, but it's not necessarily compression, traction, torsion, and shear, right? I'm not going to be able to traction there. Lots of stuff moves, but it's not quite right. That's not really going to do it. I'm going to feel a lot of movement, but I'm gliding over him, right? So it's not doing what I would want. In the lumbar column, the pelvis, or really the region of the trochanter and using the pelvis, is actually a pretty solid handle. You get nice and tight. Don't be creepy, right? Hand here. And every movement I make, it's not this, it's this. I lean, right? Now I can lean into it. This is side bending, it's not compression, right? And then I can really tune in, so there's some rotation. So now I'm adding to it, right? Now, you wouldn't see it necessarily as I do this. My breath is going to move him. See it? My abdomen, because of contact, will move them on and off. So sometimes you get into these positions and you have to hold them for a while. You actually have to control your breath because of the contact, right? Like that, right? So essentially, regardless of position, there's a trade-off. If I'm talking about pulling things apart, pushing them together, turning them against each other or sliding them against each other, in each position, I'm going to be able to do some of it, but not all of it, depending on my hold. There's always a trade-off. You can really tune in and stack planes, but if you simply use, now there are terms that I like to use, compression, distraction, torsion, and shear, or squishy, pulley, twisty, slidey, right? There's different ways to do it, and the goofier they are and the more of them they are, the more likely you are to remember them a little bit. But essentially, there's always a trade-off. Fair enough? Thank you. Sweet, there you go. Everything I said was just about accurate?
Yeah.
With what you felt?
For sure.
Yeah. And you learn that by you try it, you make the assumption.